I am working on our theme song, by the way.
Welcome to Talking Tokens. This is Mike Bradshaw here with Andy Vanderbilt, as always. And as he just said, we are working on a theme song, so we're going to get the beginning of these a little more gussied up in the near future.
I got a funky bass line.
I like funky bass lines.
I know. I took your criticism, and I was like, all right, I can do a funky bass line in there.
Funky bass line with some fun drum fills.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Best of both worlds.
So we have a handful of things to talk about. There's actually a lot that we've seen, coming out this last week, or rather announced this last week that's going to be coming out in the future.
Yeah, wasn't last week some sort of big day related to some sort of franchise or something?
With May the 4th was the big Star Wars Day. Oddly enough, it was on the 5th that Fantasy Flight announced all of the new stuff and expansions that they're going to be doing for their games.
Wasn't Worlds also going on, though?
Yeah, that just happened over the weekend as well.
Okay, because I know that was kind of the weird...
So let's start. Let's jump right over and talk a little bit about Rebellion.
It's going to be a very Fantasy Flight heavy day, but that's also because they really let fly with everything last week.
Yeah, there's some neat stuff coming out. So we have Rise of the Empire expansion. So what does this give us? What does this add into Rebellion? Because Rebellion is it's a turnkey game. It is what it is. So what can we expect out of this expansion? Obviously, they're tying it in with Rogue One, but how are they... Let's take a look at how they're doing that.
Well, I know one of the biggest changes they made is they actually tweaked combat from what I saw.
Okay.
But I didn't get to really read too much in it. But they are adding some new ships. You get the TIE Striker. Mm-hmm. You get the... I always liked those little the turrets because when I was a kid, I had the toy from the Kenner brand of those for Hoth.
Sure.
So, I don't know. You're getting a lot of neat little miniatures. You're getting Baze Malbus actually has a rocket launcher. So he's actually a ground troop that excels, I believe, in taking out...
Oh, so he could help.
I believe so, because they do have a lot of... they changed a lot now. Like, they're actually trying to keep it where... Because one of the big things about Rebellion was that it was a very cinematic game in a sense. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, sure, it was really just kind of a big game of hide and seek, but it also had a cinematic quality to it because you'd have characters like Grand Moff Tarkin executing missions, and now you can have Director Krennic.
Oh, or you are putting down the plans for your secret missions, or even, is it specifically the Death Star in this one? You're hiding it on a planet?
They're keeping quite a few things kind of under wraps for the most part. But yeah, here we go, cinematic combat, because they're adding more wrinkles to the combat, because the combat was never one of the higher points that people really liked in Rebellion.
Right.
Because it was kind of just a matter of roll the dice, see what happens. And
Speaking of which, we've got green dice now.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what those actually do to change up.
It looks like there's a lot of blanks and then some awesome explosions.
I'm excited. I really hope this kind of breathes some more life into Rebellion because we haven't really gotten to play it much here.
No, we haven't.
I think I played it once, and that was a starter game.
Looks like there's a card here that's got Ewoks in it.
The unfairly hated segment of Return of the Jedi that I'll never understand.
We've got the Interdictor here. That's looking great.
And you've got the Corvette, or the Corellian, the Nebulan B. There you go. That's what I know it is from Armada. And of course, you get familiar characters. I like how they added in Jabba as one of the. But then you have Jyn Erso and Chirrut.
Yeah. So is Jabba? I doubt they're going to be adding in a full-fledged third faction. So is Jabba on the Imperial side or the Rebel side?
He's more of a.
Or are there going to be certain heroes that are for hire?
That's what I'm thinking. I think they're really trying to boost the game in terms of adding more strategy and more to kind of make it stand out on its own. Because I had fun when I played it, but I never really got to put more time into it because, of course, we play how many games here of the Star Wars name.
Exactly. On that note, though, one of the big ones that is coming out with stuff is Imperial Assault. Imperial Assault has a lot of real neat things.
I mean, not only are we getting a big box expansion, which we'll get into, but this is really the thing that sold me. I just got recently into Imperial Assault, and I went nuts buying them because the miniatures are really cool, and they're really fun to paint, which I'm looking to do soon. And we're getting 3 new heroes for each faction.
Yeah.
So you're getting Ahsoka Tano, who has grown to become one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and I love how she has gotten more and more involved with the. She appeared in X-Wing with the Sabine's Tie expansion. She's
Yes.
appearing in this. And then you also have Emperor Palpatine of all characters. So now you can live out your dreams of having Vader and Palpatine terrorize the field. I'm sure Force Lightning is going to be a...
Which means Imperial Assault is getting very close to finishing out the original trilogy storyline.
Which does bring the question, are they going to... Like, where are they going to go? Well, I'm actually very curious to see, because one of the biggest expansions to this, besides getting these 3 characters who are going to be, I'm sure, very popular in the skirmish mode, you're actually getting another big box expansion with Heart of the Empire.
Yes, Heart of the Empire. It takes place on Coruscant. And I can never remember the name of these guys right here. The Syrians?
I think so. I am terrible with the races.
Yeah, this one looks to be a lot of fun. I mean, look at some of these figures you got here. You have a tech-paced Wookiee character. You've got this like assault stormtrooper,
Which is cool. You even have what looks to be like some sort of battle droid.
yeah, yep.
And you're even
This is
getting...
some kind of modified ATST.
I think those were usually the... you've seen those, I believe, typically on occupied planets in most cases,
Okay.
from what I understand.
The ATDP.
But I think it's really cool that they're expanding on it, because Imperial Assault's a great game. And I really think what they need to do, though, to really get it going is they need to get that app out. And they keep saying they're on it, and I'm sure they are, but I think once they do that, that'll really... Because I think one of the big problems of this game is I love playing the skirmish mode, but a lot of people want to do the campaign. Fortunately, sometimes for the campaign, you got to get someone to be the Empire, and sometimes, people don't want to be the Empire.
Yeah.
Sometimes one versus all games can be kind of draining.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see that they're supporting the game more, because a lot of people were worried Imperial Assault was going to be kind of on its way out,
Yeah.
because X-Wing and to a lesser extent Armada are kind of taking over. So I'm very excited about that. I know I'll definitely be picking up at least the... Actually, wait, no, I forgot Heart of the Empire has miniatures in it, so I need it.
Yes. It's got some nice miniatures in it.
Yeah, I really love the Riot Trooper.
And then one last thing from Fantasy Flight before we switch gears.
Which I'm not a
completely.
fan of.
Well, all right. So we're going to go over to Rune Wars, and Andy is our in-store expert on the Y car. So I have been playing a lot of the Dakin Lords while I am eagerly awaiting the release of the Uthiculon, or even just an announcement of what's going to be in there.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a really cool faction.
But now we have range support. We have heavy crossbowmen for the Dakin Lords. And these guys, let's take a nice look at their sculpts here. I love the way that they're holding up the crossbows, propping it up by a shield. It gives a very... it's very thematic.
Don't get me wrong, the models are great. I'm just not too happy because, Archers is really all we got right now.
Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the stat card. So we have the heavy crossbowmen. For a tray of 2 of them, it costs 19 points. You could bring that up to 48 points for a unit of 6 trays.
That gives you all the options for upgrades too.
Now it has a ranged attack unique ability, so it can only be used once per game, and it costs 2 charges to use.
That's still nasty though.
Yeah, if the defender is at range 3, in range 1 to 3, add a mortal wound. It's devastating.
Well, yeah, that could be a death blow on anything.
But it's also very thematic for what a crossbow is. A crossbow is extremely powerful.
Oh, yeah.
So at that close range, crossbows were initially designed to get through plate armor.
Yeah,
Where arrows would bounce right off of them. A crossbow at the right range will just pierce right through it.
No, I think it's great that they're still expanding more on this. I do kind of want to see, because aren't the Y-Car and the basic expansions coming out? Those are already shipped, right?
Those are they're
on their
shipping
way.
them to the distributors now.
Yeah.
And the distributors are going to be sending them out to stores like us in the next few weeks at some point.
Cool.
We don't have an exact date on it.
Right.
This also introduces a completely new mechanic that we haven't seen before, called
Protected.
Protected. So, while defending, subtract 1 from the damage pool. So instead of increasing your own defense, you're lowering their attacks. It's the first time we've seen that in this game.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to see more and more, especially the closer we get to the release of the elves and other characters. And they have a pretty good dial, too.
Yeah, their ranged attack is at 5. Their melee attack is at 4. So they're trained melee combatants. And actually, let's take a look at what their melee attack is. Melee attack is 1 blue.
That's not bad.
So
I still assume you want these guys to be out of combat.
yeah,
Like,
you
want them.
You'd want to get them out of combat as much as possible. But oddly enough, they have a white move forward 1.
I can see that being really good for repositioning.
So you do your first shot, and then the next one you move forward, or even use that on your first one so that you could get a little closer in hopes that on the next round you could do your 1 to 3.
I could see it being really useful with reform,
Yeah.
or even the shift.
Oh.
'Cause think about
yeah,
it.
because you turn and then just get out of there.
Even then, you can also, let's say you need to adjust you want to move closer so you can get within range, and you want to adjust your bearing so you can get people in arc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these guys look like they'll shake things up.
They're very movable. Their full turn is only a -1, not a -2. They don't move forward that much, though, so that's not a huge difference.
Good.
But there is no, they can turn for free, and wheeling is -1. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's terminology there.
Well, they also have charging too, which is kind of nice.
And they charge for free, unlike the skeleton infantrymen.
Yeah, I really feel like the skeletons, the archers, they're great for that status effect of blight, but I still feel like we should have gotten resurrect on it.
It's all about how you kind of put them behind your own people when you do the initial setup. Let's take a look at some of the upgrades that come with this. So Piercing Strike, it effectively gives them their one-time use ability, a weaker version of it that they could have through the whole game, or for a
gross.
discard they get to use it again. So you could do 2 mortal wounds, which is enough to flat out kill one of these guys.
Yeah, I don't like that.
So I'm very interested to see how these are going to pan out when they actually are released. Again, I'm going to be playing predominantly the Uthik-Yalin when they are released, but until then, I've been playing both the Dakin Lords and the Wykar. And the more that I see that things are being released, the more I'm enjoying playing the game. I'd like to actually proxy in some of the things that we are seeing and try out some of these new units.
It would be cool to... I'm really excited to see where the game goes. Because even though it's Fantasy Flight's first kind of attempt at this, they're doing a really good job at...
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of wish more of it would come out sooner.
You had brought to my attention the game Dragonfire.
I was on Board Game Geek and I saw this at the top, which is kind of surprising because Gloomhaven pretty much owned the top spot on the popular list. So when I saw something dethroned it, I was kind of curious what it was. And then, yeah, sure enough, Deckbuilder is seemed to be growing in popularity even more.
Mm-hmm.
And now it looks like Wizards are actually kind of... Well, now it's made by Catalyst, right?
Catalyst Game Labs, yes.
But, I mean... It's,
so everything that's been coming out with the 5th edition D&D, they've been kind of outsourcing a lot of things to other game studios.
which makes sense.
There was recently another deck building game that they had made in conjunction with, I want to say, Gale Force 9.
Okay.
And that takes place in the Underdark, and it's a very drow-heavy game.
That's cool.
This one, it looks like it is a general D&D adventure. And if you look at, you have the dungeon crawls themselves, and it tells you what the adventure goal is and how to set it up and what you're encountering. You have the character sheets for each of the different things, which is a fun little player board that you have on your own. There are ways that the characters level up from adventure to adventure that we haven't quite seen exactly how that works yet. But on their website, they do have a developer's blog that breaks down some of the mechanics of the game, and it previews how things are going to work. And, plus you get to see some of this great art.
Yeah. I think it's a cool idea, and it's definitely something, yes, deck builders are pretty common. It seems like there's one for just about everything, but I think the ones that can really make use of their source material and really sell it and put their own unique spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this looks like it's going to be one of those games that manages to do it, because I've become a pretty big fan of Legendary in the last few weeks, and I think a big part of that is, it's a deck builder at heart, but it also has kind of an interesting mechanic to it.
Yeah, and this is really interesting. So it's showing an example of how the curve of the deck works in terms of the difficulty, where you may have it'll show how many of each of the monsters and what at that hit points are in the deck. So, there's a lot of them with 11 hit points. At 5, there's only one that's really weak in comparison at 6 hit points. 3 of them that are more challenging. It looks like there's 8 middle ground ones, 8 higher end ones, and only 4 lower ones in your deck. That's an interesting way to balance out the different encounter decks.
Yeah. I think it's a cool idea, and I can see why people were so excited about it, where it would be kind of a big hit on Board Game Geek. Because, I mean, have they ever had like a Dungeons & Dragons themed deck builder?
Other than the draw
one?
Yeah, not that I know of.
Yeah, so this is kind of a new idea, and Catalyst they're responsible for Shadowrun.
They are currently...
Yeah. Well, like they're responsible for the current edition of Shadowrun.
As well as...
I know I've seen the name.
robot, the large mech game. It's escaping my mind right now for some reason.
It'll come to you by the end of the show.
It'll come to me by the end of the show.
But I'm excited.
If anybody knows it, go ahead, throw that in the comments, because that's going to drive me nuts.
Cool little idea, and I think for fans of Dungeons & Dragons, or even just that universe, that's kind of an easy way to get it. It's another one of those examples where it's another flavor of Dungeons & Dragons for people to get into and try. Because for some people, the whole RPG thing just isn't for them.
Yep. Also, over the last week, you had received your copy of Dark Souls.
Yes. Yes, I have.
And we did an unboxing video, which I'll go ahead and throw a link to in the description.
I mean, at least watch the first 5 seconds, because it's actually really funny.
Though just your sheer excitement for getting into the game.
Well, it was exciting because it was the first Kickstarter I actually received within a reasonable amount of time. It's Dark Souls, one of my favorite game franchises, and I was really excited because we, after the unboxing, everyone, even people who weren't interested in the game, were marveling over the miniatures for it, deservedly so. We actually got to do a 4-player game of it, and unlike other games that sometimes get by on the fact that they're based off something, like, I'm not saying it's a bad game, but Ghostbusters was one of my first Kickstarter experiences, and don't get me wrong, fun looking game, love the miniatures. The game was kind of shallow.
Okay.
I mean, I get it. I just I had a hard time getting people to want to play it. Dark Souls, on the other hand, though, has a really good system, and it's actually really fun. I think our first setup, it was me, Mate. You guys have probably seen him on our Magic. I think he did the entire Amonkhet.
He's also done commentary and X-Wing League videos.
He's also a big Dark Souls fanatic, to the point where I've heard him say praise the sun on a near daily basis whenever I see him.
Praise the sun.
See, even our audience knows about praising the sun. Michelle played. Someone who had the basest idea of Dark Souls just from watching someone play it for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And Shauna, who has watched me play the games and loves the lore. And each person walked away from the game with a very positive experience on it, which I think is great, because Dark Souls has kind of a nasty reputation as being so brutally hard and unforgiving. It puts people off. The board game, though, it didn't have that. We died, don't get me wrong. That did happen. We did get destroyed by a boss, but getting there was a lot of fun. And once the rules it didn't take that long. Setting it up took a little bit of time, but it's definitely one of those, you do it once or twice, it's like nothing. And combat's really fun. It's got a cool armor system where you basically can go and buy new equipment and add it up. It's the dungeon crawler game I wanted when I bought Descent.
Okay.
Because it's you against the AI, basically. And the AI system for the bosses and the enemies is really, really cool, because it makes everything feel very unique, and the combat moves very smoothly.
I know that when you were doing your first playthrough of the game, I was watching a bit while you were playing. You had a bit of a problem with how clear the rules are for how the bosses work. Did you ever get that figured out?
Yes, I did. Green, because the bosses basically, because they're large miniatures, they have 4 quadrants to them, and that basically determines their weak spot, also where their attacks hit. Green is where it hits. Black means it's neutral, so nothing happens there. Red is their weak spot.
Okay.
At least that's how every thing I've read. So now I think if we played it again, which I definitely want to do this weekend, hopefully, I think it'll go much smoother, much faster, and I think we can actually get through an entire playthrough really quickly.
Okay.
So I highly recommend it, and anyone who hasn't gotten their Kickstarter yet, I think you have a lot to look forward to. And I, of course, can't wait to get the expansions, which I ordered a bunch of.
Yeah, the production values on that game are beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And for someone who's a hardcore fan of the game series, like, I can't wait to see even more of my favorite bosses and classes and items from the game actually being put into the game as these miniatures.
Yeah.
That all look really good.
In terms of, gameplay and the way people, enjoyed the game that you've played with, if they liked that game, what are some other games that they might also be interested in? If they're not able to get a hold of a copy of Dark Souls, because right now it's kind of hard to find if you didn't back it on Kickstarter.
Yeah, you'd have to be paying about $200. Mm-hmm. And what was that?
Just say what game, and then it was like a pistol, a loaded pistol.
Okay.
Nothing that's gonna
I think probably one of the games that had the closest experience. I mean, Imperial Assault. And unless you really want a fantasy one, Descent's not a bad game. And I know there are people who've made variants on it that let you kind of have that dungeon crawl aspect. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to really think. I think one of the
the Conan game might be a good.
I actually really want to try that. I did some reading about that. I think the Conan game would be a good one to try out. Similar production value. Mm-hmm. Shadows of Brimstone, or Shadows over Brimstone.
Yeah.
I know that's not an easy one to find, but I can see how they're very similar in that sense.
And there's the new one that's going to be coming out also.
Right, that's going to be...
That has a feudal Japan feel to
which
it.
I think is really cool. But I mean, yeah, and I'm trying to think of some other games that I've heard of that have the whole dungeon crawl thing going for it. Because there's a bunch out there. I know some of the Dungeons & Dragons board games are like Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep is more of a worker placement game.
Okay.
But something like Wrath of Ashlerdan.
That might be the one I was thinking of.
The Castle Ravenloft one that they did are more
I've only ever seen the boxes, but I just got to check out some dungeon crawl games. I think the only thing that really turned me off of Descent that Dark Souls doesn't have is the time limit, and also the one versus all thing.
I also really like about Dark Souls in terms of setup. It's not fiddly pieces that you have to make an exact map. It's 1 foot by 1 foot squares.
It's big
and
tiles.
You just set them down.
Yeah, and there's actually no grid movement. It's all based on these nodes that kind of make it look cooler, but it also just sort of...
It's like a distance marker.
It kind of, yeah. And the way it works really well with how the enemies will focus on certain people. Mm-hmm. There's a strategy to it, because one of the key things before you go into a room is you decide who's going to go in first, and they get the aggro. So you have to pick someone to be like the tank, kind of. And then you can customize your weapon loadout. You can, it's a nice risk versus reward kind of game system, because you have to, because after every battle you actually heal, but the way the combat works is your health and your stamina are all 1 bar, and when you use stamina, that adds to it. When you take damage, that adds to it as well. And if they meet, you die. And to do stronger attacks, you have to spend stamina. To do more movement, you have to spend stamina. So, like, one example was we were getting attacked by an archer that was really doing some damage. It was my turn. I had to make kind of a risky move. I actually had to push my character to get right next to the enemy, and if I missed, I was pretty much guaranteed to die.
Okay.
And if I didn't do that, someone else probably would have died, because those guys do a lot of damage. So, like, it was this really cool risk versus reward and really clutch moments that I think make those kind of games really exciting.
All right, so it definitely sounds like it's one that you highly recommend.
Yes.
I really want to play it myself.
I do plan on bringing it in this weekend.
Very cool. One thing that we started last week in hopes of kind of putting together a regular segment.
I almost think we shouldn't do this, because what happened after we came up with that idea?
So, yeah, it was the next day after we were just kind of pitching an idea of what would be kind of neat in what we'd like to see in a game about The Thing. That game was pretty much announced.
Yeah.
That being said, looking into it, they also announced that same game back in February.
I know, but...
So this is just now with more detail.
The irony.
So It's not exactly like our idea was stolen. So I don't
It
think
was
that's
more
something we
so
have to
the
worry about.
irony of the situation. Like
Yeah.
we just talked about that, and then I go on because I get emails from Mondo. So I ordered a few records from them, and sure enough, there it is. The Thing board game announced. I'm like, what?
Yeah. So
You said you had an idea.
I have, well, at least I'd like to try and pitch an idea. I don't know how well of a thought out idea it is.
All right.
But that's kind of the purpose of this.
Lay it
We'll
on me.
Throw something out there.
We're in an elevator. I got a short time frame. What do you got? What do you got?
So I really like asymmetric games.
Okay, asymmetric is in. There's no differences in the factions you're playing against. So, like everyone's on the same playing field.
No, the opposite of that. Asymmetric
Oh, okay.
is that
Words.
one or more groups of player have a completely different
Gotcha.
game that they're
Gotcha.
playing,
Okay.
or play style that they're
Like
playing.
Cthulhu Wars.
Yes, Cthulhu Wars, Netrunner,
good point.
Blood of an Englishman,
Okay.
Fury of Dracula,
Right,
asymmetric. What if it was an asymmetric? I don't know if it'd be a team game necessarily, where you have two almost completely different games going on.
Okay.
All right, so you'll have a group of people on this side and a group of people on this side, and they're doing something different, but they're related to each other. So the best way I can explain how that would work is, what if it's a game where you're trying to simulate the idea of like Black Friday madness? Okay.
You got to be careful saying those words around me.
Oh, because you've worked in Best Buy?
I worked 7 years, man. You said that word, and I felt like my heart drop.
Well, so let's say there's one group of players, and they are all the owners of stores.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
All right.
So you have like an inventory management system going on over there. These are the things that are in your store, and you're kind of like bidding on what the prices are, and like you're trying to undercut prices. The other set of players are all shoppers. Okay, and they're trying to get the best. They have a set amount of money, and they're trying to get the best amount of value for what they have. So you have a winner on both sides. You have the retail store that made the most money, and then you have a shopper that had most efficiently used what they're trying to do and won things out over the other players.
Now we got
Gallery says no.
the Admiral says no. What don't you like about it? Cause,
If you're going to contribute, you got to come around.
yeah. All right, we got a key because he looked kind of sour. I'm glad to see
Marching
it.
over here.
All right.
All right, this is wow. The
Owners
Admiral.
of retail stores do not want to relive Black Friday ever.
Now, I will also say there's workers that have a hard time. You saw the look on my face when you mentioned Black Friday.
All right, then.
It's like a war memory.
All right. So let's take that idea and apply it to a different theme.
But now I will say this. I will say this, though. I do like the idea, and I think it has a place. Hold on, Brian. Not for you. Not for you, but for people who don't know the terrors of working Black Friday or being a retail owner Black Friday. I could see how that theme would entice some people.
If it ends with people having a better understanding and respect for what we do, I'm in.
I think it would, because, I mean, think about it. It sounds like a stressful... It sounds like XCOM. Did you ever play that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, we played
Sounds like Captain Sonar,
a little bit.
and nobody wins.
Isn't that Captain Sonar?
No.
I thought by the end of that everyone hated each other
half-
because somebody goofed up.
Half of the people win.
Oh, okay.
You just hate your own team.
If you lost.
Okay, if you lost,
No.
gotcha.
All right, so let's take that idea of like the two separate games going on, and they affect each other, but ultimately you're going to have a winner from each side. So it's almost like, let's make it to where you have a team that has to work together on each side to do something. Maybe there's some opposition, but ultimately there's still going to be, a clear winner on each side.
All right.
To apply a completely different kind of theme that you could use with that same idea. And this is going to sound ridiculously boring to a lot of people theme-wise. But what if it's the idea of you're trying to pass a law? And you have the House on one side and the Senate on the other. And the way they go about things is completely different, working towards the same goal.
It's another one of those things where I could see it be... I don't know if I would ever play it.
Mm-hmm.
That's also because I'm kind of dumb when it comes to politics.
Sure.
I honestly like the shopping thing better because I can wrap my mind around that a bit more.
Okay.
Isn't there a game based off of writing the Constitution? Your idea.
Not that I've seen, no.
Well, let's hope the creator got shot.
No, I think there was, and you have the different parties, and you're trying to vote in different parts of the amendments. I don't know what it's called. I think it's made from the same person that made the Twilight Struggle.
Oh, it's a GMT game.
Okay, so if you weren't able to pick that up, John was just mentioning the idea of a game that already exists that's about writing the Constitution, that's possibly made by GMT Games, and I could see that really being in their wheelhouse.
I did think of an idea just now.
Okay.
What if you made it where instead of like to kind of go off that whole communal sort of thing, what if you did it about being in a bidding house?
Okay.
Like you have a person selling something.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make the most money.
Yeah.
So they have to set a price point, that they feel is fair for this particular item. And then maybe you have two teams of people trying to, like, I don't know. See, it's a difficult thing to work with, but I'm thinking, like, what if you had sort of an idea like that where it was people competing for something, like you had the shoppers competing for the best deal, and maybe you have people selling stuff, or even you could apply that concept to being like a pawn shop sort of thing.
Okay.
Like you're trying to sell useless trinkets, and you're trying to get the best deal from a pawn shop, and in the same notion, the pawn shop's trying to make some money.
So that and that becomes very much a back and forth. I could see that being an asymmetric one versus all game.
Well, I'm thinking, what if you have multiple pawn shops though? And they have to make the choice of, well, do I want to buy the item for that price, or do I think it's garbage? And you can have like a randomly, maybe not even randomly, but you can have like a generated deck that says like, this item is worth this. Or like, you have categories of items that end up being more popular. So it kind of becomes sort of like not a guessing game. Like obviously you'd have to develop a strategy to it, but I think that'd be kind of neat if you had like, because I think of like, I hated the show, but Pawn Stars, they always have people coming in with like, this is the item, this is how much I think it should go for.
Yeah.
As the player, as like the seller, I got to sell what it is. I got to say like, this is a really important item, and you could have kind of a fun, creative idea where you can have someone basically give them like dry erase cards, and you could draw what it is, and
okay.
like I think that could be kind of fun because it could also get really silly.
Well, so then I'm seeing a game
I think we got proof of that.
that is similar. Okay, so the GMT game, is it GMT?
It's based off of the 1960 election game, I think, which was...
It's made by Jolly Roger Games. It's called Founding Fathers.
Huh.
Area control, area influence, campaign battle, card driven, card drafting, hand management. Yeah, this is voting mechanics. I could see all of that working really interesting in terms of a, creating a nation type idea. I want to look more into that. I want to see if there are more full-on asymmetric games where you have this group of people playing this game, this group of people playing this game that has different goals, even wildly different mechanics, but the two influence each other.
Oh, what about Space Cadets?
Space Cadets, isn't that a real-time...
It is real time, but like everybody has, it's like controlling the bridge of the Starship Enterprise kind of. One guy's rolling dice trying to match.
Okay, so that's more like Captain Sonar. Like
That's
you were saying
actually
before.
that sounds very similar to XCOM, because in the XCOM board game, one person is in charge of the science facility, another person's in charge of combat, another person's in charge of accounting, another person's in charge of... You're giving me that look. Like,
No, I'm just...
Thrilling game of accounting.
oh man, it sounds boring, but let me tell you something. That game had everyone, because Ken played it. He brought it in, and you have this app that basically has a timer on it that
keeps
just
yelling at
winds
you.
down, and it's like, oh my god, come on, balance the checkbooks, asshole. Like you gotta get like really, and then I'm yelling at Nathan for effing up the science. I'm like, you can't science worth a damn. The only person who was good was our combat engineer, which is really crazy because combat and XCOM, the games, never went well for anybody. Standing next to a goddamn alien and you miss with a shotgun. That's
Shooting into the ground.
It's relatable, isn't it? For anyone who's playing XCOM.
All right, so what I'm hearing is Black Friday Madness is a no-go.
I still think it's a fun idea for a game, and this might trigger some people. I'm just saying.
And let's see, what would I call the ratification is a no-go.
You know what you can do? Work on that pun. Make them all rats. You're trying to pass a law.
All right. I see where this is going. See, no, I'm back in now. I'm back in 100%.
Ratification. This rat-ification.
Yep.
And it can be a senate of mice and rats.
Well, if that isn't a metaphor for today's politics,
I was actually envisioning like cards that would have like the different representatives or the senators or whatever they are, and based on their political affiliation, they're either horrifying donkey people or just these terrifying elephant men.
That's yeah. I don't know. I mean, okay. All right, we can work with this. We can work with this.
And we can still have the mice and the rats as independents.
Ooh, that's actually very metaphorical. Can we please have one? We got to make one that's like Ralph Nader.
All right. Okay.
Can Vermin Supreme be a Kickstarter exclusive card?
Get to the end of the game and realize that you've been playing on the same side of the entire
Exactly.
time. Like New World Order.
What the?
See now we need to backtrack because now all I want to do is play a game about Vermin Supremes. You know, where you're trying to run for president, and you're trying to come in as a third party.
That's an expansion.
Yeah, there you go.
That adds a third player to the mix. The person trying to run for president.
Well, but that doesn't affect Congress.
Oh, it will.
We could have a full on executive branch expansion that adds a third game into the mix.
Patent pending.
No, you can't actually do that.
I don't care. I'm
You
saying it
can't
anyway.
patent a board game.
Whatever. I still said it. I like this idea. I think ratification will work.
All right,
You know I'm a fan of stupid puns.
that's true. That's true. You know what? I can't complain.
I see some groaning in the audience.
just shut up and keep going.
All right, so that's all I can think of for this week. For next week, I know we're going to be getting a few more playthroughs in of Dark Souls.
Yes, I would love to give more thoughts on that. Trying to think, man, what else is...
We're going to have an upcoming kind of discussion at some point in the next handful of weeks over where you and I and then the other participants in the Corellian conflict are all going to talk about our experiences running through Fantasy Flight's Corellian conflict for Armada.
We have to finish it.
And in that, we're going to talk about, you know, what we thought about that. We're going to do a proper review for the Corellian conflict, and we're also going to talk about what steps we would want to take for going forward to have a Corellian conflict style organized play here in the store.
I think it'll work.
What in the game works for that type of setting, and what we would want to change or completely add in new things to make it work a little smoother.
Yeah, we've already had some ideas. And actually something me and Will, we have been working on some X-Wing variants that I think would be really fun to talk about because obviously X-Wing is a big deal in the store. We just had how many people in that tournament in the league?
It was a
24.
24-man league. And, you know, one thing that kind of I noticed towards the end of it is that people were getting kind of burnt out, and I kind of understand where they're coming from. Because, yeah, you know, because the 100-point versus 100-point skirmishes can, you know, you play them enough. Maybe you want to try something different. And I hear the missions for X-Wing are kind of, they're more training. So, Will, resident X-Wing sort of expert.
The captain of the Green Squadron.
Yeah, he is captain of Green Squadron. I have to call that man captain.
Point. Tell them what it's for.
Okay, so we are now able to hold PPTQs here, and dates will be known next week. That is, you know what?
I have to be a dingus.
We're going to have the Admiral come in on this one because he can speak more intelligently about this.
Because I don't know what a PPTQ is.
I think it's when you have a problem.
Nope.
So as many of you know, we opened October 1st. We are now advanced level in Wizards. Fun organized play thing that they do. Now that we are advanced level, we can hold Pro Tour qualifiers here in this store. So we're very excited about that, and we will have dates and all that fun stuff scheduled sometime next week, so hopefully in time for our next episode.
So basically,
It's awesome.
So from what I'm understanding, because like I said, I'm still very new to this. So basically, you can come here if you're a Magic player and actually qualify.
There's a couple of different stages.
Yeah, I think
game stores like ours, PPTQ is the starting point. That's the basic.
essentially
so you start
the
there,
road,
then you have
the
to
road,
continue up.
Yeah.
Yes, and your points continue and progress towards Pro Tour. Looks like we'll have the ability to host. I'm not sure if it's both, so don't quote me yet. either a sealed standard or a modern event, or both.
So you're telling me Magic players are going to monopolize more of the time here? No.
Yes, absolutely. That's a 100% guarantee. So yeah, we're really
Dang it.
And that also means that Brian gets to do his favorite thing in the store,
Yell?
which is rearranging tables.
Yes.
Please
Yes,
stop
I do.
doing that.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
What about us X-Wing? What about us regular folk?
You guys have the middle of the store. You have beautiful.
We want more store.
All right, that's fine.
I actually kind of liked it when we were back by the windows. We get to like
You got
watch
a view.
traffic and
You got a
stuff.
view of cars outside.
Instead-
All right, so this is getting out of hand over here.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. Be sure to watch, follow, comment. Is that what they say?
Yeah, do all those fun things.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
That one.
Yeah. What John said. The brains of the operation. The other guy with glasses.
All right, well, you guys all have a good night.
Smart,